The topic of this video is about evaluating expressions. In evaluating expressions, there will be times when an expression or equation will contain variables, where we will want to plug in a value for that variable and then solve that expression or equation. Now, one thing that's really important to remember is whenever you plug in a number for a variable, you must use parentheses. This will help with organization and making sure we use the proper order of operations. So here we have three variables, x, y, and z, and they are all given a value. Now what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate these different expressions down below and simplify by plugging in those given numbers. So let's take a look at letter A. In letter A, we have our number 7, and then because we're using the variable x, we're going to plug in 3 for that x. So anytime you plug in a number, we're going to use parentheses, just like so. Now parentheses means multiplication, so here we're going to do 7 times 3 to equal 21. Let's take a look at letter B. Letter B says z squared. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the value for z, which is -4. We're going to plug it in using parentheses and then square it. So here we're going to plug in that -4 in parentheses and square it. Now when we're taking -4 squared, what that means is simply -4 times -4. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So we're going to think of this too as 4 times 4, which is equal to 16. Letter C says 4x minus 2y squared. So here we're going to be taking two different variables and their values and plugging them into this expression. So letter C says 4 times x, and x is 3, so again we're going to plug that in using parentheses, minus 2 times y, and y is -2, so again we're going to plug that in using parentheses and we're going to square it. Now here, this one is really challenging us to make sure we follow our order of operations. So parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. All right, that's the order of operations. And here, we're going to do our exponent first. So we're going to take that -2 and we're going to square it. So remember, just like in the previous problem, it's going to be thought of as -2 times -2, which is +4. So really I'm going to do 4 times 3 minus 2 times 4. So I'm just simplifying as we go. Now I'm ready to do multiplication. So 4 times 3 is 12 minus 2 times 4, which is 8. So 12 minus 8 is 4. Now letter D says 4y divided by z. So we're going to plug in both y and z, those values, and simplify this fraction. So we're going to do 4 times y, which is -2, and we're going to divide that by z, which is -4. So again, I'm just plugging my values in using parentheses. Now when you simplify a fraction, you want to make sure that you're simplifying the numerator first, and then simplify the denominator before you do the division. So I'm going to simplify that numerator, doing the 4 times -2, which is -8. And there's really nothing to simplify in the denominator, so again, I'm just going to rewrite that -4. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. Those negatives are going to cancel each other out. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now I'd like to do just one more extra challenge question, and that's going to be challenging because of a negative. So we're going to just write this one as letter E, and we're going to make this a -y divided by x. Okay, so that's the challenge right there, is we got a negative in front. So here's what that's going to look like. When I plug in my y value, remember, and my x value, I'm going to use parentheses. So we're going to plug in that negative first, and then we're going to write my y value in parentheses divided by my x value, again using parentheses. Now you can see why the parentheses are important because of the organization piece. Now I have a negative in front of another negative, and those will cancel each other out. So I'm going to be left with a positive 2 in the top, in the numerator, divided by 3. So I want you to think of this as a negative 1 times a negative 2. That 1, that's that number that mathematicians sometimes write and sometimes don't. So really it's a negative 1 times a negative 2, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So that's what happens. Those negatives cancel each other out. And so finally, my answer is 2/3.